Okay, we are all set, Rafi. We can start straight away.
Okay.
So, since we are going to talk about the old Indian, one important thing which we should discuss about the old Indian is the approach with the move order. So, this is the most important thing which we can discuss right now. So, the best and the easiest way to play against the old Indian is actually to play knight f3. But this has a problem with our ongoing repertoire. Yeah. So since we are, we decided to play the Samish against the King's Indian. So now Black has an option to go into a very regular King's Indian. So he won't be doing this e5 straight away.
Right.
So this is the biggest problem which I figured out that can happen in the old Indian, because most of the materials that I have read and most of the recommendations from my previous coaches against the old Indian has always been knight f3. And you can actually refer to many books also, which are very famous in the d4 lines. Most of them, again, just give us the option to play knight f3. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a big benefit for the players who play the fianchetto version, because they can pretty much play g3, bishop g2, castle, and c4 almost against anything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have a problem in this setup, because if you want to transpose into a King's Indian, okay, they're fine with it. If you want to go for an early knight d7, e5, they're also fine with it. So pretty much the same thing for them. But for us, it's going to be different. So
Right.
since we don't have a choice, and since we are going to play the we are playing the Samish variation, we have two options here. So one is we can actually go for the move c4. So c4, as again, in this position, if you can see, knight f3 is the most recommended move even in the Leech's database, and e4 is the second best move because it transposes into a perk defense. Yeah. So this
Mm-hmm.
is not anymore an d4 line. It's basically e4, d6, d4. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
perk defense. And the third best move is c4. And I think we have to probably stick to this move, because we don't have, if we play e4, we always have to be constantly worried about some c5 and some Sicilian transpositions. And I'm pretty sure it will be like unfamiliar territory for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
would like to skip any kind of E4 business for sure.
yeah, it's not just suiting our preparations at all. So I would also not recommend to play e4, because there will be a lot of transposition either into the Sicilian or into the Philidors or a regular perk defense. So we have to add basically 4 or 5 extra lines to deal with it. And I don't know if that is a great idea right now. So I think we can stick to c4 basically. C4, so I will be keeping C4 as our main option. Here, Black has, again, two main ways to play. So one is Black can play the delayed E5 line, and one is when he can go E5 directly. So these are
Mm-hmm.
the main two options here. So I want to just mark that E5 is the move, or let's say this marks the old Indian defense, and it is practically the intention why Black played d6 in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if he wants to delay e5, Black can play g6, to which we should play knight c3, bishop g7, e4, and e5. So this is another option which Black can get here.
But here we have no problem because now we can play at same-ish, right?
Yes, so this is what I wanted to also discuss with you. So we can play d5 here, and Black usually goes knight e7, to which I think we easily can play our Samish setup here. But you should also understand that this is probably a slightly favorable version for Black, yeah? Because Black is not wasting a move to get the f5 break. So basically, Black did not develop the knight to f6 and then take it somewhere and play f5. Black directly played knight e7, and this knight can come to f6.
Interesting. Okay.
So you can actually imagine it. In the normal King's Indian. So what happens in a very normal King's Indian is knight f6 is played. So let's say after f3, castles and bishop g5. Yeah, so this is the usual system.
Mhm.
Let's just imagine that h6 happens here and we come back. So, and black plays something like knight d7, or let's say even knight c6. So what will be the standard response here? So we can go queen d2, king h7. So let's say bishop d3 or knight g2. And we get a position like this where black has to move the knight somewhere. So either of these squares, then
Mhm.
play f5, which anyway is a bit risky because it's still on this diagonal.
Mhm.
But we forget about the other small, intricacies in the position. Just I want to tell you that. So something like this, and let's say this, and black still has to make another move with knight f6. And only
Yep.
then he can reach the position which we were just discussing. Yeah.
Yes.
So after so many moves, he practically reaches this particular position which we were just discussing.
Mhm.
So in this early e5 system, black will be saving a lot of tempo. So to this situation, I found that bishop e3 is a very decent alternative in this position. So we might get a position like this, d5, knight c e7, and now we can use the move g4. So this is kind of, against the move, well, discouraging f5, yeah, let's say. And here we are pretty much very clear that we don't want to give black f5 so easily, although black anyway will still play it. But the whole point was to discourage f5. And so, for example, let's say black plays something like this. We can play f3 and pretty much get a standard Samish position. But here you have to already understand that in this situation, black has no chances of playing c5 anymore. So black has already committed e5. So that's why our king on e1 is fine, and we can actually castle both sides in this position. So for example, if we get queen d2 and let's say bishop d3 and knight e2, we can decide which side to castle, either this or this.
Okay.
Okay, but yes, we have to make this early g4 move. So here black goes f5, to which we get a position like this, and we play queen h5. So practically, we are making sure that he is not able to castle. Now, in general, I have seen knight g6 being played, which is also one of the main lines in this position. But I'm not very sure if you are going to face knight g6 so much. People will be very scared of ef5, yeah?
Mhm.
So king f8 is usually played, to which white should go bishop h3. So this is also some of our preparations from my previous camps, which actually highlights the drawbacks of the early f5 move. So what exactly white is hoping for? Yeah, white is actually hoping for a position. So let's say fe4 happens, and I'm just gonna lay out the strategical part, yeah, and knight e4 happens here. So the most important piece of black gets exchanged. White will just long castle.
Gotcha. Okay.
And the knight will be super strong actually. The e4 knight is kind of, you can say, sitting on an outpost, and always there will be some issues regarding this one.
Mhm.
So naturally black never captures on this square. F4 is another possibility here. Seems a bit risky because of some tactical possibilities like bishop e6 to start with.
Hmm.
So for example, yeah, we play a move like this.
Yeah, for sure.
So you can see that black is already a bit, I'm pretty sure that black will be a bit scared to play this position because it is giving us so much opportunities to use the pawn on e6. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is definitely a bit risky. So black usually will play knight f6, which is again the main line. And here queen f3 is the recommended move again, which I have also seen almost everybody play this move, to which f4 happens. We just simply come back bishop d2, knight g6, and we trade off the bishop. So just trade, and queen h3. So we get a very pleasant endgame. Now, considering the fact that the queen and the light square bishop is exchanged, two results are possible, yeah, from this situation. Either black will, like, somehow manage to make a draw, or white will be usually better. I would recommend, I mean, if we switch on the computer evaluation, you can see it's giving a stable plus for white almost all the time. The problem is slightly different here because computers have a little bit difficulties in understanding the King's Indian, yeah, thanks to the space advantage, especially Stockfish. So maybe some different engines will give you different evaluation, but at this point, it's a bit risky for like us to completely rely on the Stockfish evaluation. So going back a few moves, white can also play long castle here, which is also very effective. And the idea should just be to, get the knight to e2 and start already with h4, h5, which seems also very good.
Okay.
And another option is h4, to which I found only one game, which was not very, I mean, the result was not in our favor, but also is pretty good for us. So that game, I can just insert it here. It seemed a bit strange because I think the game was played online, and that's why probably the results were like not in our favor, because I can see that white's position looks so nice, here. So I'm yet to understand like how this can happen in a game if it's not online.
Like you're saying white's position is nice here?
Yeah, I mean, white's position looks very good actually, even in this point. Yeah, like you can see knight a4 ideas, queen b3 is coming. Like white seems to be dominating in this position, like so many outposts and good squares for us to proceed our play here. Black has no squares, I mean, I can, if possible, and if I get a chance, I can just play f3, and that basically marks the end of black's king side play. Yeah. So I'm not very sure, but the style of the blunder, yeah, you can say, like white just followed some plan, which I'm not sure the best or not, but the blunder can happen only in an online game, I guess.
Okay, knight takes h4 and then.
Yeah. So, but I think it's a bit harsh to judge this h4 line from this game, because h4 seems very logical here, and I think white did play extremely logical chess and was completely better. So I mean, it's a pity that white lost the game just like that. Should not have happened. And well, I mean, c5 can also be met with this dc6, queen c6, and just king d1 ideas. So you want to just play knight d5 and knight g5. And again, I don't see a lot of good counterplay from black. So
Okay, yeah.
we can actually keep this h4 line as one of our main repeteurs. So I mean, I would recommend to have this one. I mean, instead of like grinding a very slow end game with queen h3 or something, h4 seems very nice. And very logical, yeah, that you're coming up with threats and something. So I did analyze queen g4 after this, to which I figured out that I can just play h5. And this knight has to move somewhere. So h6 practically traps the bishop.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I mean, why h4 is not played. I mean, h4 should be the main line here. It's sad that there is only one game in this position, but h4 should be the move. Okay, so this line, I mean, it's a very logical representation of the King's Indian defense, where you can say that because the light square bishops are exchanged, White's position is looking very good. And it's kind of a forcing exchange. Like it's not like Black has a lot of option. Because if Black delays, I'm pretty sure White is going to capture it and play knight e2, knight g3. Yeah? Hold on to the pawn for forever, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be very risky for Black. So that's why I think in this early f5 lines, I mean, we can go for this g4 idea.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, it's I
But
mean, yeah.
if I don't go for the g4 line, do you think that it's that much better for Black with the extra tempos that it's not playable for White for the most part?
No, nothing like that. If you don't go for the g4 line, so basically you are suggesting that we can go for a regular Samish setup, right?
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure we can do that. So we can start with this f5, f3, knight f6, and knight ge2. So this is also fine for us. I really don't see any problems in this one. Just in this line, we have to make one extra move of h3 so that we don't fall into some fe4, knight g4 ideas.
So will I castle king side or queen side in this?
I think in this one, we can keep the king. It actually depends a bit on Black's decision. So for example, let's say that Black will castle here. And let's say I play something like queen d2. And let's say Black plays f4 already, yeah? Like hypothetically, let's say. So here I absolutely don't see the reason why White should castle on the king side. Like we can just pull back bishop f2. And after g5, I'm pretty sure we should just castle on the long side, yeah?
Mm,
And then we try to play like g3, h4, and we anyway open up the king side lines.
interesting.
Because it will be slightly weird to castle here, knowing that Black has already some pieces ready on the king side, and Black is going to play the g4 brick, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I really don't see castle is like I mean, positionally it looks bad. So I don't want to castle here. I will just go long castle. But this depends how long we can maintain the king in the center. So for example, let's say Black plays some waiting moves here. So bishop d7, for example. So it's a pretty standard King's Indian move to just develop the bishop to d7. So how long we can wait? So let's say h3. And okay, let's go a5. So something like this. So you do realize that at some point we have to commit the king to some place at least.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say long castling is the safer decision because I really don't think Black can use any of his pawns to create some havoc here. The center is closed, so that's to our benefit. But if we manage to castle here, this looks a bit risky. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So something like this and g4 at some point.
Yeah,
I
I never
mean,
want to be in that situation where I'm getting attacked.
yeah, I
And
mean, it just feels a bit weird that Black's attack is anyway directed at our king, and White's only break is like c5, which Black will obviously ignore. Like Black is not going to take or do something.
I
So
think that like playing this is almost looks like the classical variation of the King's Indian. I feel like it's almost always like Black is doing better in those scenarios. White's play on the queen side, and just practically speaking, at my level of chess, it's very difficult to construct those attacks when you're getting attacked on your king side, and then Black's attack also launches so quickly, so much faster than White's.
Yes, actually, yes, because the defense has to be very accurate. Yeah, that's the problem, I
Right.
think.
Right.
And
Exactly.
and it's much easier to attack with the black pieces because the attacking moves are kind of very usual. And
Mm.
I mean, maybe they are not able to finish off the attack, but the initial phase of the attack, they will definitely construct pretty easily. And also one more problem is in the classical setup, if you remember, white's knight usually gets developed to f3 and it comes to e1 d3. Yeah, like that's the usual spot.
Yeah.
So that actually helps you in playing c5, once your knight is on d3. And in some of the lines, the knight comes to d2, and after c5, it also goes to knight c4. So putting more pressure here.
Yeah, that's true. And I think also at some point, white can try to give up the exchange, the rook for the bishop, right, on c8.
Yes, that also happens in some of the positions. And also the knight on c4 has some additional benefits that you can take cd6, and weaken the b6 square. Yeah, so the knight can jump to b6 and try to get at least one of these guys. So white has some additional benefits in the classical line. In the Samish line, the knight on e2 seems highly misplaced for the c5 break.
Right.
So I would not recommend the short castling systems in this particular line. Even if,
Okay.
even if there is no clear attack and even if the computer is saying it's equal and stuff, generally I would be a bit scared to go into those lines. I mean, I would be more happy to play long castle in this position because I just know that c6 is never a big problem. I can just play king b1.
So why did you pick the other line as the one recommended instead of this one? What was your idea behind doing that?
In which line you mean?
The line that you suggested with g4, why did you recommend that line over this one?
It is more forcing, and it will be something new for the level of opposition you have. So an early g4.
I see. It'll
Like
kind of throw
people,
them off a little bit.
yeah, people are, I mean, the level of opposition you will be facing, if you get such a line, they won't be anticipating g4 and queen h5 so early. So basically to drive your opponent into slightly uncomfortable situations, you can go for this one. But if you want to have a standardized setup, we obviously have the other line as well.
Okay,
So that's
got it.
that was my choice. I mean, that is why I mean, as usual, I always have, like some options laid out for you because it's not always the recommendation. It's also the ease of playing. Yeah. So if you feel like
Yeah.
comfortable in one way, you can go for that one.
Yeah. I'll try out both in blitz games and see what I feel comfortable with.
Yes, I think that is one of the best ways of preparing any opening. You can, I mean, we used to have like training games with some of our friends or partners. So basically, we can set up this position with G4 and play like 5 games from white and 5 games for black. So basically, just to see if you're able to get like a lot of correct moves in the middle game or get into some decent end game positions or something like that. Just to get a feel of what can be the practical upcoming positions, yeah, from this situation. If we feel we are comfortable in it, we will go for it. If not, we'll try to find an alternative here.
On Lichess or chess.com, is there a way that you can set up the initial position and ask people to play from that position?
Yes, yes,
do
there
people
is.
usually accept those kind of challenges if I do that?
Not really. They actually don't. I mean, random oppositions they won't accept. That's for sure. You need to find a training partner for that.
I mean, like a common openings. Like for example, I want to play the same-ish against the King's Indian. I put the first 3 moves on the board.
No, I think it's still difficult. I mean, people won't be accepting specific colors or specific positions in a random challenge.
Okay, gotcha.
So, but yeah, if you know anybody and you can just talk to him in advance that we can just try some training games, they will for sure. That's no problem.
Right.
You can set up the position and play.
Right. Okay,
That's
makes sense.
Okay. So yeah, you let me know whichever suits you, but you should just know that this is perfectly playable and there is no problem in going into this line. Also, if you should, I mean, this is something which you should know. If just in case black takes on e4, in this situation, fe4 will be playing into black's hand. So black wants to get into such a position, where he can harass your dark square bishop.
Yeah.
So we usually play knight e4. So we usually try to get into a position where we have good control over the e4 square, like a permanent control over the e4 square. But if you really want to have that fe4 system, you can try h3 in this position.
I think I feel more comfortable with knight e2.
Okay, if knight e2 and if knight e2, then you must be prepared to play. I mean, if somebody goes fe4, then you must be happy to play this one. So this is the position that you should not be afraid to go into.
h6 then.
We just come back bishop d2.
And I'll castle on the king side here.
Yes, definitely. So for example, if he castles here, we just castle as well.
Okay.
So here we can, here, because black has already committed fe4, he has no chances of launching a direct kingside attack. Our idea is very simple. We just play queen c2, b4, c5. Like that's the thing we will try to achieve in this one. So it depends a lot. Some ideas include b4, queen b3, and then c5. Some ideas include just put the queen on c2, keep maximum pressure on this diagonal. So again, from here, you can say that you have actually bypassed the theory and you have reached a middle game position straight away.
Okay.
Another idea in these kind of positions sometimes are to trade off the knight first, put your bishop on e4, and then go for c5 as well. I mean, after having queen c2, of course.
Okay.
But it's a very favorable position because black does not have any attack, and the maximum he can try to do is equalize the position. So for example, if he tries something like c6, yeah, so you need to be ready to play these kind of positions here.
What do I do against that? Just
I think we can take on f6. Just neutralize everything. So he will probably take with the queen. And this is also one important thing which some people might forget. They would probably try to reroute this knight to e4, yeah. But then you should understand that you are also allowing black the very good outpost basically on d4. So before we do that, I think we have to be very careful. So here, I think we can follow the standard idea of just bishop e4, and white seems to be doing okay here.
Okay.
So I'm just expecting a position like cd5, cd5, and you have an open file. You have queen a4. You can try to enter into some nice squares. At least I think, at least the position looks fairly even with more easy queenside play than some kingside attack. Because I really don't see any kingside attack happening here. Like, okay, even if he gets this, we can just take it. So it's not like it's not like black can launch a minority attack against the kingside pawns here.
Right, yeah.
Our knight is defending d4, so no problem there. So seems pretty okay for me.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is definitely, yeah, of course you will require some practical training in this one, but apart from this, I don't see any problem.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I feel comfortable with this line.
Okay, perfect. So
can we go back for a second and
yes, we can.
I was just gonna say, so no, back to the starting position, sorry. So put the next couple of moves on the board. So in that position with so play
e6.
What was it? I think we did
So we saw this line G6 and E4, E5. So this setup.
Right, and then bishop E3.
Mm-hmm.
So here, what if they take on D4?
Yes, so they might take on D4, which we should take, and they will play knight F6, to which we can play F3.
So this is now a Maroczy bind, or
No, Maroczy bind, Rafi, is when the C pawn gets exchanged, yeah?
okay, I see.
So when black plays C5 and CD4, then it will be a Maroczy bind. This is not a Maroczy bind for sure. We call these kind of positions like a little center. So we are basically preventing black to play D5 in this. And I'm sure if we do that, but this is a very standard King's Indian position, you know, like any position in the King's Indian, which can happen from E5 and ED4 might lead to such a position.
In this case, I will castle on the king's side.
Yes, preferably yes. Black has already exchanged his E pawn, yeah, so no attack. You can castle on the king side in this
But
one.
I have to spend a move to bring the bishop back to E3, bishop D3, etc.
Yes, you have to spend one move here. Like actually that happens instantly almost like this, and castles happen. So here itself, we can go knight G2. We do have queen D2 ideas here, but I'm pretty convinced that in this one, the attack on the king side might look a bit dangerous. It will be, I mean, it seems that this is a bit slow considering the center is a bit open, yeah?
Oh, like king's attack for us, like we attack.
Yes. I mean, I'm not very sure if this is going to be that successful.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't feel comfortable with that here either. I would feel comfortable actually. I've had these kind of positions, and I've actually, what I've done in these setups is to play knight D1 to F2, and then the other knight from E2 to C3, and then castle on the king side.
Why not? You can try those ideas as well. But I think in this one, it's probably better to get the knight to F4 and then play just bishop E2 and castles.
I see.
So for example, something like this, yeah, we can just play this. So this and knight F4. So as long as D5 is not coming, that's the only thing you have to check in these positions. Because white usually enjoys a space advantage here, right? And white is going to get one of his knight to D5 and just wait, you know. Like basically the question is to black, yeah, like what sort of break he wants to take, what is his plan, and it's not that easy to suggest. But as I said, like this is a very common King's Indian position, and a lot of play can happen from here.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but yes, ED4 can happen, and I also know that some of the players can go for something like this as well. So here you should not exchange. Like this is basically, you know, agreeing a draw or some kind of thing, because white has exchanged two most important pieces which he needs in a little center position.
Right.
So this is here you should avoid the exchange and just come back queen D2.
Okay.
So here you should avoid. I mean, it's not about like attacking something. It's more about that if you have the queen, you will have more winning chances. If you exchange, black's passive position, I mean, lack of space is not a problem, yeah, since two of the major pieces are getting exchanged. Two important pieces, basically.
Sure, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's easy. I mean, once you get to play some training games, you will see the easiness of these positions. But we have to get back, Rafi, to our main challenge about E5. So here is another problem. Are you willing to like go into any, I mean, queenless middle game positions with D takes E5? Is it something that you see yourself playing, like early exchanging queens and trying to play slowly and steadily?
From what I've understood about these positions is that once the queen exchange happens, black ends up typically at least equal, if not even better, in most of those endgames for some reason.
Yes,
in my experience playing these.
it's it's correct actually. So the problem is the moment we go for these kind of typical exchanges. So let's say something like this, yeah. Black, as you can see, hasn't committed anything specific here. So black
Right.
usually plays c6, takes control of the very important d5 square, yeah, which seemed like very attractive. And since the bishop is also quite active here, black will put the bishop here or here. So
Mm-hmm.
depending on the situation. And
Yes.
white cannot go e4 that easily because that will mean giving up the d4 square permanently. Black
Right.
usually has like a lot of ways to get to the d4 square even after committing c6. Like for example, I remember one of my games when I was playing it as black, and it was already something like this, and I had to use some maneuvers like this, and anyway I ended up on d4.
Mm.
So not something which is that easy to play, you know, you can say.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that this will, I mean, obviously white can go for this E3, B3 setups, which will equalize, but as I said, equalize, yeah. So white can maximum hope for some equality here. Don't see any clear-cut reasons to play equal positions. I mean, right from the
Yeah, I think
opening,
people
I
that
don't
play
see.
this line are like they want to play this to draw also. It kind of
Uh,
plays right in their hands.
Well, basically, I have seen that the people who choose openings like Old Indian and all, they want to sidestep the vast theories, you know, which are involved in some other lines.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to get into a pretty like new position where it's more about like ideas and stuff instead of well memory, you know. So they will try to play some just some position where so for example, yeah, what I was trying to say is like if you get a position like this and let's say white plays g3, so you can see the opening moves include bishop e6 and c6, for example, but
Mm-hmm.
nothing, I mean, it's not going to be that bad if black plays knight d7 as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to play something more positional, you know, like more on a setup based idea
Mm-hmm.
instead of going for a well trodden path or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think we should not make their lives that easy. At least, would recommend you to play knight f3 here. But again, I have that nagging sensation that if we ever commit the knight to f3 so quickly, we cannot get the Samish type positions. And
Yeah.
black has moves to wait now.
Yeah. I don't think I would play knight f3. I don't feel comfortable with
So
that type of thing.
yeah, if we don't have, I mean, if you're not going for knight f3 in this position, I think the other move has to be knight c3. I mean, what else basically can we do here? So it has to be knight c3. Now the problem of knight c3 is he can still go knight d7, but here we at least have e4, and we are trying to get this f3 idea.
If we go d5 right away, will he play f5?
In this position, if we go d5, yes, he will go f5 for sure. So this is like a better version of the Dutch.
Yeah. I
So
think
he
I've
will
had these
go.
positions before. This is kind of how I've been playing this actually. And I've almost always lost.
Yes, because this is a very favorable version for black. Yeah, black gets almost everything that he wants, and he is. I mean, okay, you can go e4. So I think this was what Avruk also had a game in this one. I remember him showing me some ideas in this. But I mean, this is not okay. It's not like that reliable. So this I just feel that this is like an ideal version of the Dutch defense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in our previous session, we spent like a whole time, you know, discussing a bunch of ideas how black should be having difficulties in playing e5 in the Dutch, how white should be looking to play d5 before e5 happens, and also how to deal with e5 once it comes. But here you can see the moment e5 comes, we are basically, thickening out. Yeah, we are kind of closing the center. We are not maintaining the tension in the center. So that means
Yeah.
black will convert everything to a Dutch-like situation, and this should be very favorable for him, because as you can see, he
Yeah.
hasn't even committed this g6 bishop g7 yet. That means he will have some ideas which might involve the exchange of the dark square bishops as well.
Yeah. I agree with you. I don't really like playing like that at all in this position.
Yeah, so I think we stick to knight c3, which seems the best idea here.
Okay, another option I was going to ask you about. What about e3?
E3
Yeah.
can play. There is nothing. I mean, there can be nothing wrong with e3, but e3 also will give you some King's Indian positions, which we are not familiar with.
Oh, because they can now play g6 and.
Yes, because for example, they will play knight d7, so knight c3, and let's say g6. So this is like, I mean, black is basically taunting you, that he wants to now transpose into a King's Indian, and obviously you cannot get the Samish anymore. You have already committed
Right.
e3.
Wow. Okay. Okay, let's look at knight c3 then.
Yes, so knight c3 is I mean, it just seems that is the only option available to us against the old Indian, considering the fact that we are playing the Samish. I mean, if we had knight f3 in our repertoire, or let's say the fianchetto King's Indian in our repertoire, then things would have been much easier for us. So keeping that in mind, we can also think that maybe against the King's Indian, we can add the fianchetto version as well, just to deal with the old Indian players, the old Indian system players. So for the
Okay.
future, so that's that. Like, I mean, that's how we should be, like, more flexible, we can say.
The fianchetto variation would be included with the knight c3 line here, right?
Yes,
Like
obviously.
this is the line where I would fianchetto, correct?
Yes, only if black goes for like some specific move orders, then we can consider fianchetto, because then we don't even need to do anything and start with knight f3. So basically, can you just give me 1 second? Just want to give you an example. And this will probably make things a bit more clearer. So as you can see, this was one of the games in the old Indian. So here you can see I have clearly fianchettoed, like, even without any invitation, I did this. So this is exactly how the old Indian players would like to play their positions. And yeah, you get a pretty decent game straight after this one.
Okay.
So you just put the pawn d6, and there is nothing special for black anymore.
Can we slowly go back to the beginning
Of this game? Yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying that this is okay. Can you move forward again? But so here the problem is that they can still do the King's Indian, right? Like, we're not going to do this, correct?
Yeah, obviously that's what I'm saying. Like, we can enter into this one only if we are playing the fianchetto anyway in against the King's Indian.
Okay, no,
So
let's skip that and let's stick with your knight c3 approach, I think.
yeah, obviously we will be sticking to knight c3 only. Like, this would have been the best and the easiest way, but that would include I mean, you get the magnitude of the problem. Yeah, just to avoid or just to prepare against one line, you have to learn like 10 different systems now.
Right.
So because there is, I mean, obviously I cannot guarantee a player who is playing the old Indian defense might be a King's Indian player as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if he actually manages to switch move order now, there is nothing we can do. We have to enter into a King's Indian fianchetto or a classical one. So we will probably enter into this one, which gives a completely different position right now. So we will be having a position like this now. And this is the position which we were talking about, yeah, like this structure. So this is a normal King's Indian position. It's a main line. You can see like, thousands of games have been played here, and well, it's a whole new system and it's a whole new theory. A lot of things to learn in this, and not just this. There are a lot of other things as well in this one to learn. So there are systems with knight c6. Things will be just messy for no reason here.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
that's why I think we don't have a choice. That's what I was saying. We have to go for this system with knight c3.
Okay.
So against knight c3, e takes d4 happens. This is anyway the main line, and queen takes d4. So knight c6, and here there is a, you can say, some crossroads of some kind. So queen d1 is preferred. Queen d2 is also another main line. Depends which one we are going to play. So gonna show you some statistics here. You can see queen d2 is played maximum in this position. But you should understand that if you're going queen d2, you are already committing that this is the place you want to develop your bishop. There is, obviously there is no coming back from this particular thing here.
Right.
And there are some very sharp lines against this one. Not very sure if a lot of players know about it, but players have committed like huge positional errors in these kind of situations. So I'll just give you some examples in this one. Queen d1 is a safer alternative here, like much safer alternative. Usually the game goes like knight f6. So here we have to play e4. We don't have a choice. Now g6. And since we are more inclined towards the Samish kind of thing, I actually think we should go f3.
Okay.
So bishop g7, bishop g5, so castles, queen d2. And okay, h6 is the commonly expected trap in this position. People expect you to take on h6 so that knight e4 can come. And
Yeah.
queen h4, queen h6, yeah, that's the whole point. So we just come back, and now they play king h7, and we just go knight e2. So you can see pretty much we have reached a very similar position where our idea still remains the same.
Okay, that makes sense.
So here we are also kind of bypassing or sidestepping a lot of theory. And in my practice, I have always preferred to come back queen d1 just to avoid huge theoretical discussions that happen from queen d2. So, I'm not blaming queen d2. I just feel that queen d2 gives black a lot of tactical opportunities. It's a bit biased decision. Maybe it's like a personal opinion as well, but I always feel queen d1 gives us like very safe options, and black cannot do anything to prevent our idea of just e4, knight e2, bishop e3, f3 thing. So let's just try what happens if we play something like g6. Yeah, so we still go this, bishop g7. So hypothetically speaking, let's just see bishop d3, knight f6, so knight e2, and you can see we are pretty much getting a very comfortable position. Yeah. So we can just play f3 and things are fine for us. Same thing I did try to get with direct f3 here. So let's say knight f6, bishop g5, castles, queen d2 is a transposition. So we just reached this position here, yeah?
Right. Okay.
You can see it's like a transposition. So the other way is to see if black has some benefits of developing the knight to e7. So, I don't know what else we need to be worried about in this position. So here I tried again to go bishop g5, h6, bishop e3, castles, queen d2. So now black has to defend, yeah? So he does not have anything on, he does not have the knight e4 tactics. So king h7. And here, g4, again, the best way to stop f5. And white seems to have a fairly, good game. Again, not mandatory to play this. You can play knight e2 as well. And to f5, knight f4. This also,
okay, and then if he takes,
yeah. So here the problem is we have to, we have to take on e4 with the knight. I don't want to recommend you this position because we are kind of permanently weakening this square. Yeah. So I don't know if it's a very good idea. I mean, I would positionally, I would not recommend this move. So we take with the knight here. And knight f2. I mean, knight f5, bishop f2. And I think we are right on time to get bishop d3 and castle. So nothing in particular is happening against my position. So black is not able to break through or attack or take advantage of the king in the center. Like for example, if he goes rook e8, I can just actually play bishop e2. I'm fine.
And then if knight d4?
Just castle, I guess.
Okay.
So I think my knights are like doing quite well on these squares.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is one of the options. We can of course check for bishop d3 as well, which seems maybe even slightly better. But okay, this is already like some positions which you have to play and get to see if you're okay in playing these kind of positions. You have to probably check what are the difficulties you are also getting once you get to these positions, and eventually decide if we can go for these lines. But overall, I think we are able to get a Samish oriented position against the old Indian as well. Like that was the main goal of my preparations or my recommendations today.
Yeah, no, this is definitely much better than the other stuff I've been doing so far. So going back, yeah, at this point, after queen takes. Actually, instead of taking on d4, if they play f5 now.
Not so popular because here we can takes, check, and I'm pretty sure we go e4 at some point. So this looks, so for example, let's say bishop e7, long castles, probably king e8, bishop e7, knight e7, and I don't see the point why black is entering into this one because it seems that black's position is a bit shaky. So I'm gonna somehow try to get e4 and knight d5 as quickly as possible. So maybe knight f3 first. So provoking e4, which black kind of, he doesn't want to play e4 in this because white gets here and starts breaking the structure with f3 g4.
Okay,
so
yeah.
Black will avoid playing this, but now if he goes something like this, he has to constantly worry about knight b5 being played. So somehow I see that black is in some sort of a tricky dilemma. Knight c6, of course, I'll play knight b5.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if black wants to get into this particular situations with going f5 this early. But I know that whenever f5, e5 will be there, we need to take and play e4. Like that's like a standardized solution to this structure.
So and here, if he plays go ahead.
Yeah. Please.
I was gonna ask if he plays e4.
Right now it's white to play, so we will take on e5.
Oh, okay.
So we are not going to give the chance. Given the chance, he will play e4. So we will take now and take. So complete our development with tempo. Let's say something like this and long castle. So you can see white's threats are actually quite dangerous in this position.
Yes, see that.
So I wouldn't be so worried if black goes like some early f5 and stuff.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it from my side. Just we can have a quick reminder next time, Rafi, to just check the slight drawbacks of Queen D2. Okay, so it will. I mean, I would just take like maybe 10-15 minutes of your time next time. But just one. I mean, I will definitely show you what are the things that can happen in this situation. So, like, why I prefer Queen D1 to Queen D2. That's the thing.
Gotcha. Okay, we
Okay.
can pick up then.
Okay. Perfect. So I'm gonna
Sounds good.
stop sharing and recording. Yeah.
Yeah, let me know when you have done. Okay.